I'm not essentially a happy person, but I have all kinds of joy. And there is a difference, you know, because joy is a great big electrical experience. And just happiness is what, I don't know, it's a warthog can be happy. And I don't want to knock warthogs. Why did I think on that?
What about painful times?
One of the best games of all time.
Yep. It's my favorite PlayStation game that they've ever made.
Yeah, it's pretty damn good.
As good as like any Mario game.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't say that lightly.
Super Mario Galaxy 3 they made it and PlayStation put it on their console instead.
Because you know what? Everybody always goes on about Mario, including myself and Nintendo. This is the Mario game for Sony.
I've been having a really good time with it. And now I'm like, now that I've said all that, I don't know. Like I said, it's the nostalgia hits differently this time than it did the first time around, at least for me.
A lot of media, movies, TV included, do very poorly is like preying upon nostalgia, right? Like, and it just feels like they're pandering. But here, for whatever reason, it's done with such a deft touch.
And unlocking and finding so many hidden treasures. And it's like a treasure hunt through Sony's history. And it's just really upbeat and keeps the game flowing through every world and every level. And I gotta say, it's just fun.
They took a Funko Pop and they ripped the middle of its face out with a melon baller. And then they replaced it with black. They put a couple jelly bean eyes in there. And I've got to say, it just makes me really sad. At what point does an homage turn into pandering? Astro-Bot, I think, is the actual answer.
And you'll come across a character and like, hey, it's that dude. I love that dude. Man, PlayStation hasn't done anything with you in 25 years. And you get a lot of them. It kind of reminds me of when PlayStation made the spicy take. A bit more fun and kind of had a variety.
And, you know, look, I don't want to forget, right? Like there are games in the Ape Escape franchise that are not great video games. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every single game that's ever been made that's Ape Escape has been the best thing ever made. Like, I want to live in the world where they became and stayed PlayStation mascots, you know? Sony didn't even bring one of them over. They let Ubisoft bring it, you know?
But as someone who actually cares about the way these things evolve over the generations and decades, and where I see it going in the future, I sense grim tidings on the wind. 45 years old, I'm going to tell you what I don't want to do anymore. I don't want to recapture what was lost anymore.
Astro-Bot is both an incredible feeling game and a deeply, deeply cynical game. I'll talk more about the cynicism in the second part of the video, but let's first focus on the game's DNA. Astro-Bot was released on Friday, September 6th, 2024 for the PlayStation 5. It is a sequel to both 2020's Astro's Playroom, a free pack-in game for the PlayStation 5, and 2018's Astro-Bot's Rescue Mission, a VR game. Developed by Team Asobi, a studio formed out of the Ashes of Japan studio, makers of Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian, but also Knack, Patapon, and Ape Escape, or even the especially deep cuts like Siren and The Legend of Dragoon. Astro-Bot has cemented itself as PlayStation's new official mascot, boldly taking the throne that was once held by the likes of Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, and even the humanoid avatar Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series. Astro-Bot is a franchise that aims to be the first Mario for Sony, both symbolically and as a video game. Super Mario World, released as a free pack-in for the Super Nintendo back in 1991, is universally known by many as the best Mario game of all time. I take exception to that because Super Mario Bros. 3 is the best Mario game of all time. It's the only video game Big Joel has reviewed on his channel, after all.
Being able to avoid certain levels serves both a practical and an aesthetic function. It allows players to avoid trickier levels, but it also makes the map feel more organic. less like a list of upcoming challenges, more like part of the game.
I've often wondered why Big Joel stopped making game reviews after his Mario 3 review, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning that it's because nearly every platformer released after Mario 3 was a wet, drippy diaper of fetch quest sensibilities. Every philosophy of bad game design taken from Super Mario World was implemented into every platformer, especially in the 3D era. I went back and tried in earnest to capture footage of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy, and I found myself bored to tears after spending 5 minutes with each one. You can't say that about any of the NES Super Mario trilogy, and I put the 2 Super Nintendo Marios in there as well. What makes Mario Bros. 3 so timeless is that it can balance linear action platforming with adventurous detours that don't require the player to have a supernaturally God-given sense of vision. I promised I'd keep this video short, so I'll only focus on one of my least favorite Mario 3 worlds as proof of its excellence. Even this world has 2 iconic levels. The halfway castle features tremendous bits of platforming. Mario is first encouraged to run as fast as possible to avoid the whomps, and successfully doing so results in an intensely satisfying symphony of missed thuds. Then he encounters both the moving spikes and the boos en route to the boss. Mario and the player quickly need to figure out when to move and when to look at the boos, which stops them dead in their tracks. If you stop looking though, they start coming for you. Moving and looking are 2 verbs most associated with the 3D Marios, but here we see them both working in harmony on a 2-dimensional plane. Super Mario World made the boos a considerable part of the game, and a less fun one in my opinion. I'm a survival horror guy, so I'm a bit biased, but these levels never struck me as fun or spooky, just a dreary slog of backtracking and searching. World 2 also boasts the infamous Sun level, in which Mario must white-knuckle his way to the goal as an angry sun endlessly pursues him. Mind you, this level predates Resident Evil 3 Nemesis by an entire decade. Games like Banjo-Kazooie and Sonic 2 are often unironically mentioned in the same breath as Mario 3 because fans of those games have misremembered how great they feel to play. In reality, Sonic 2 is only great when Sonic can go as fast as the Genesis's blast processing can allow. When he has to slow down and start searching, Sonic 2 becomes something else entirely, and it ain't great. Mario 3 keeps the kinetic pace flowing while encouraging replays of levels that don't require the player to have to slow Mario down to a halt. I think the main reason people remember Sonic 2 and Banjo fondly is the music, and perhaps the novelty of the dry British script of the latter. But it definitely ain't the gameplay. Astro-Bot feels great to play when you're not browsing guides and Let's Plays in order to find obscurely hidden treasures. Like, literally feels good. The haptics of the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller in your hand almost convinced me I was an Astro Boy, as I felt the crunchy vibrations emanating throughout my hands. And Astro Boy doesn't entirely learn from the bad design lessons of scavenger hunt game philosophy. Some of the tighter levels are the ones where Astro Boy must find an alternate exit within the level, and there are the more difficult speedrun levels that unlock only after having beaten the entire game. Those levels, along with the Symbol Voids, the Crumble Rumbles, and the Retro Rampages, provide the most challenge in a tightly compact package of brevity. But in order to get there, the player must slow down the entire experience, joylessly searching every nook and cranny of each world in order to find Funko Pops.
I still don't know what the idea is. It's about nothing. Right.
Upper management executives have obviously never been synonymous with radical change, but it still came as a surprise that Jim Ryan could say some of the things he said when he was head of PlayStation between 2019 and 2023. Jim Ryan was nothing like Shohei Yoshida, someone who was sincerely passionate about video games.
It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. Remember that one? All right, so
instead, Ryan opted to turn PlayStation into a live service brand in an attempt to cash in on the success of cash cows like Fortnite. His biggest acquisition was Bungie, a company most synonymous with creating Halo for the Xbox before pivoting to live service looter shooter Destiny. Regardless of your belief on whether live service games are fun, the reality is that they are incredibly predatory. Microtransactions encourage players to open their wallets in order to gain access to paywalled cosmetic items, but also in order to artificially accelerate their progress in a game. I used to love the NBA 2K series until their career mode made progress so agonizingly slow that I was forced with no choice but to pay $20 real-world dollars in order to get points to level up my player. And that's on the lower end. There are families who have gone into legitimate bankruptcy because of this service, which is essentially an unregulated digital form of gambling. Now, single-player games still exist, but Jim Ryan was against the preservation of older PlayStation games, even infamously going on record for claiming they looked ugly. This ideology created an apathy within PlayStation to only focus on making safe bets that could earn massive buckets of money. Hence the return of God of War and a sequel in 2021 that offered diminishing returns. Then in 2022, we got a sequel to 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn, a genuinely interesting game that its sequel did everything in its power to negate. The mystery was gone, replaced with a cacophony of Ubisoft open-world game design. 2020's Astro's Playroom was at least free. It was an optimistic glimpse into an alternative future where Sony listened to their fans.
Yeah, we remember what you loved.
In 2020, we were stuck in our homes, desperate to love something, anything new, especially if you were one of the people lucky enough to get a PlayStation 5 at launch. Not only because of its outrageous price tag, but its severe lack of availability due to COVID. Astro's Playroom at the time made me excited for the future of PlayStation. Little did we know it was all a shameful foreshadowing of things to come. If Astro's Playroom was a museum to PlayStation's past, Astro-Bot was a mausoleum to it. A graveyard of low-effort Funko Pops created with the sole purpose of saying, "Hey, remember this thing you used to love?"
Well, fuck you.
Jim Ryan isn't a game developer, and Astro-Bot was released after his time ended, but his banal influence has hung like an endless gray cloud over PlayStation. But as damaging as Jim Ryan's tenure was, at least we got this amazing clip out of it.
The one and only Shu Yoshida, president of our worldwide studios, who introduced you live, and who also gave you some great examples of the connected social experience.
Seriously?
So a big hand for Shu Yoshida, ladies and gentlemen.
You gotta find that focus, man. It's not gonna find itself. Yeah.
If the best games are the ones we think about even when we're not playing them, then Astro-Bot wouldn't even rank in my top 100. Heck, there were times I was playing Astro-Bot that I was thinking about better, more interesting games. I was even ruminating about my trauma, and not in the healthy sense. I found myself replaying old unpleasant memories as I joylessly hovered around a dead world looking for puzzle pieces and Funko Pops. Mario Odyssey is definitely masturbatory, but at least I'm not reminded of better games I could be playing every 2 minutes. I just pick up moons with a drifty controller and move on with my life. Odyssey's New Donk City is the most interesting world I've encountered in a modern platformer. Mario finds himself in Nintendo's interpretation of New York, a vast neoliberal empire of towering skyscrapers and businessmen in pinstripe suits. Mario can even purchase a pair, complete with a fedora that makes him look either like a gangster or a corporate ad executive. New Donk City is a postmodern example of level design because Mario is a fish out of water in this world. This is as far from the Mushroom Kingdom as he's ever been, and yet it is presented as its own utopia. He's thrown into this city, half as tall as everyone else. Because Mario isn't a human being, he's a video game character. More specifically, he's a Japanese interpretation of an Italian-American stereotype. Mario must fix New Donk City by getting down and dirty in the sewers, which has been corrupted by the typically grimy entrails of Bowser's evil. You strike a working relationship with Pauline, the mayor. When Mario isn't disinfecting the city's plague, he's on the search for a jazz band whose musicians are split across the map. We must find each musician in order to unlock Odyssey's grand prestige moment, a bombastic 4-minute musical number that plays as Mario himself plays a simulated version of Donkey Kong. It's a shamelessly unconscious celebration of the Nintendo brand, 3 full years before Astro's Playroom, and 7 full years before critics started to call Astro-Bot the greatest PlayStation game
of all time.
When I first experienced New Donk City in 2017, I was hopped up on Adderall at 4 in the morning, my heart racing with the virility of a drug addict who desperately wanted to be taken seriously as a video game journalist. In 2024, I experienced New Donk City as a sober cynic who would probably be described as the type of person who wouldn't be fun at parties. I hear some of you saying, well, you don't have to collect all the Funko Pops, but the best and most difficult platforming content lies hidden behind collecting all 300 bots and all the puzzle pieces. Each main world has a PlayStation branded one within it. There's a God of War level, a Horizon level, and an Uncharted level. They each do the thing you think they're gonna do. The God of War one gives you an axe that has an impressive amount of versatility. The Horizon level gives you the bow. You can even activate bullet time as you aim down the crosshairs. And Uncharted is appropriately a white colonizer's wet dream, giving you access to a pistol that can wipe out all those inconvenient natives in a hurry. But these stages focus more on spectacle than precision gameplay. They're all fine, you play them once, you think to yourself, huh, that was kinda cool, and then you never think about them again. But there's one world that stands out more than the others, the Ape Escape level. The Ape Escape level dares to do something different. It's not the typical action platforming level rooted in violence. Instead, it is about capturing mischievous apes with a net and radar detector. The gameplay is so polished that it made me yearn for a new Ape Escape game, though we know how unlikely that scenario is. Hopefully Team Asobi gets to develop one after the unmitigated success of Astro-Bot. The Ape Escape franchise wasn't about anything profound per se, but its revolutionary implementation of the right analog stick as the button mapped to swinging the capture net was unlike anything we had ever played before. As of now, the level is a crash course in depression, reminding me of the line in The Sopranos in which Tony says, "Remember when is the lowest form of conversation." But even more sinister is the addition of a Boku no yatsuyasumi bot. Boku no yatsuyasumi was a franchise that never got released outside of Japan. It was a series that boldly eschewed violence in favor of a luxurious 30-day summer vacation in a hot rural town in August. Boku no yatsuyasumi boasted both the cinematic presentation of Resident Evil and multiple prestige events that graciously rewarded player choice. Its final release was 2009. If you were to ask me if I'd take just a remaster of just the first Boku no yatsuyasumi over Astro-Bot, I'd excitedly shriek yes, 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 100 times out of 100. Today, players can be viciously reminded of its existence as a Funko Pop version that haunts us, destined to a fate in a mausoleum of PlayStation-branded collectibles. But the stiff reality is that Astro-Bot reviewed just as well as 2022's Game of the Year, Elden Ring. Can we even compare the two games? I decided to platinum Astro-Bot because my friends did, and they convinced me it would be a relatively easy one. I'm not someone who platinums games. The only two I can think of off the top of my head is Donut County, which was pretty easy, and 2009's Legends of WrestleMania, a game I barely remember playing. I thought I was going to feel empty platinuming Astro-Bot, and in some ways I definitely did. I shifted between listening to podcasts and YouTube guides as I grinded levels to earn currency in order to obtain all the gachas in the gacha station. First of all, Astro-Bot is a phenomenal podcast game in this regard. Though being unable to turn down the bleeps and bloops emanating out of the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller was a bit of a bummer. And second, I was finally rewarded with what I wanted all along. Linear platforming levels which require near impeccable timing and skill. I didn't think I'd come away from Astro-Bot thinking about it too much. But over a weekend of shameless indulgence, I devoured that endgame content with the voracious appetite of a starving man-child. I must have retried the Grandmaster final level over 100 times before I finally triumphantly beat it in a delirious joy. I was rewarded with the final bot in the game, the iconic Grandmaster from Parappa the Rapper's first level. A level I must have replayed at least 100 times on the PlayStation demo disc that came with my PlayStation 1 back in the late fall of 1998. And then I sat there one final time, reminding myself of everything lost that has been recaptured. Astro's Playroom has a museum of PlayStation's consoles, while the Crash site houses 300 branded bots who you can dance with, fight with, and do chores with. They all have cute little idle animations. After taking this all in, I gotta say, Astro-Bot now is definitely in my top 100 PlayStation games of all time, but it's still for a very cynical reason. Is Astro-Bot a game about nothing? I don't know. Astro-Bot is a warthog's joy. I myself am a warthog. I am just like every other exploited working body. Is it the best PlayStation game of all time? No. But I think you'd have to try harder to act like it's not worth experiencing. Because despite how cynical and depressing and potentially damaging this game could be, it remains a beautifully tragic snapshot of our time. Just hanging out in a dead graveyard, recapturing all that was lost and seeing it in all of its soulfully soulless glory in high-definition televisions. Thanks for watching.